Hello and welcome to Cooking with Seasons. I am Chef Frank from Three Magnets Brewing, here to answer some questions.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Frank. I wanted to start by asking you, how did you get your start as a chef?
Oh, it was completely by accident. A family friend had a restaurant and he was looking for some summer help. So I helped out while I was just going to junior college. And I ended up just loving the creativity and the camaraderie of a kitchen. So I just kind of stuck with it. Went on from there.
And here you are.
Yeah.
How many years has it been?
About 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, another question. If you were to teach one chef skill to home cooks, what would it be? Preparing vegetables specifically.
You know, the main thing that I feel that's most important is knife skills. You know, we have all these different kind of vegetables, and the key to cooking a variety of vegetables equally the same is having them the same size and shape. So if we got some nice hearty vegetables like carrots and potatoes and some root vegetables like the rutabagas and turnips, you want to cut them all the same size. So we could teach the knife skill to have them like that, so then when we cook them, they would all be the same, whether we're roasting them or having them in a pot roast or something.
Nice, that's a great tip. What's your favorite fall vegetable dish to make at home?
Favorite fall vegetable dish? I love squash. So butternut squash with a little bit of brown sugar and butter. It's kind of one of my favorites. I did just, I have a CSA, and I got butternut squash. Not butternut squash, spaghetti squash. So we just split those and roasted them and scraped it out and just mixed it with some fresh cheese and some other tomatoes and basil that were also like in our CSA, and that worked out great.
Right. Yeah, we have a spaghetti squash over here. We have a lot of different varieties.
Yeah, so spaghetti squash is it's so cool. Like you just scrape it after you roast it, and it just looks like spaghetti noodles. So yeah, a lot of fun.
What are some of your favorite go-to dishes you make at home?
My go-to dishes, you know, so we have like our CSA, and we really never know what we're going to get. We have the different seasons, so that kind of stipulates going and getting right now. I love pizza. So we end up just roasting quite a lot of our vegetables just on a sheet pan, a little bit of olive oil, roast them in, pull it out, and then I'll mix them in the morning with my eggs, or I just sprinkle them on my pizza. And one of the cool tricks I've learned is started doing a cast iron pizza. So we do a cast iron skillet, get nice and hot, olive oil, and then roast our vegetables in there. Take them out, then put our dough in there, a little bit of olive oil, some garlic, and sprinkle those vegetables back on top, just like a little drop of cheese.
That sounds delicious. I like the idea of cooking the vegetables in the pan and then putting the dough in.
Yeah, it kind of preheats it for us, so then when we put it in the oven, it just got to finish the melting the cheese on top, and the veggies are pretty much roasted, nice caramelized color.
What are some of your favorite ways to prepare winter squash?
Winter squash. So again, I like to roast them, but then I've been adding them to my potatoes, and like a mashed squash potato. And then the other way I do in there too is the celery root. So I don't know if you have any. Oh yeah. So we just peel those, cube them about the same size as a potato, bring them to a boil like 15, 20 minutes. And those are kind of like crushed red potatoes, a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt, pepper. So I throw roasted garlic in there. And it's just roasted garlic, root vegetable, or winter squash, mashed potatoes. So, which is really good for like leftover Thanksgiving turkey and stuff like that. So,
There's two questions.
Will you ask one?
Yes. So one is, what were the purple leafy greens in the CSA box 2 weeks ago, and how would one use them?
It's hard to know what the leafy green was. It might be. Will you pull up that kale?
Yeah. So this is just like purple kale, which what I would be assuming you would get if it was purple, or maybe some dino kale. What I do is I definitely destem them, so I pull all these leaves off, and then I'll just compost the stem. And then from these, if I'm going to eat them raw, I'll usually add a little bit of salt, and I massage them really good to soften the leaves up tender a little bit. And then you can just throw it right in your Caesar salad or mixed green salad. You can make kale chips. So you just put these right into the oven, like a low oven for about 30 minutes, probably about 275, 300 degrees. They'll turn into little chips. And on my cooking video, I did a kind of like a herby ranch, and you can just dip those right into that. Works really good. Or I like to saute these up. So I'll just saute them up and then add them to like my eggs in the morning. Or eat a lot of burritos. So you can roast most any vegetables and just put them in with your beans, a little bit of cheese, and then your kind of ingredients. So.
Would you, if people don't know what it is, tasting it, they might get an idea, right?
Yeah.
So this is really fibery.
Yep, and then you'll know if it's kind of fibery by cooking it down. It'll break that down for you, so then you don't have to use your choppers to break it down. So that works really nice.
Another question is, how many years of work experience and what credentials/schooling did you need to be in the position you are today?
Oh, so most of mine was on the job training. I worked for a number of talented chefs as a young cook, and I kind of worked my way up through the ranks by working a lot of hours and just a lot of my own book learning from that role. And I had worked my way all the way up to a sous chef of a the lobster shop up in Dash Point. And when I was there, then I decided to go to culinary school. And then from there, it kind of helped open up some other avenues, and I became an executive chef for a large catering company. So mine was a little bit of both on the job, working my way up, and then schooling and running a kitchen for a number of years. I think the longest kitchen I ever ran was about 8 years, and I was up in Tacoma. And then from there, I kind of did everything I was going to do for that company. And I ended up going out on my own, opening my own restaurant and catering company. And I went to where most of all our produce is grown, in the Columbia-Yakima Valley. So I actually moved 3 hours from here to Eastern Washington. And I wanted my kids to grow up with the farmers' kids and the grape growers' kids and where all the hops are from. So it's just right there in the middle of the valley. So in our backyard was a huge cherry orchard, and apples were down the road, and wheat was up on the hill. It was really important to me. If I could put a restaurant anywhere I could, I want it to be in the heart of where everything's grown. So I decided to do that. And I had my restaurant for a number of 6 years or so. And then from there, family was important. So we moved back to Olympia to be close to family and everybody. And I ended up getting lucky enough to work where I do now, which is at Three Magnets Brewing. So, yeah.
Another question we have is, how do you use leeks?
Leeks. So I like to take the leeks and I use an inch from the root. I cut it off, and then from the top where the leaves turn from green to white, I cut it there. Those are pretty much 2 fibers for me to use, so I kind of get rid of those, and just that heart of the leek. And then I end up splitting it real down the middle, so there's long pieces, and I wash them really good because they're usually kind of sandy and dirty, kind of right through the middle of the leek there. So I'll kind of scrub them, and then when I scrub those, it's usually in a little bucket, and then from there I'll take the leeks out, let them dry in a colander, and I usually just slice them up, a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and an onion. So whether I want to cook them a little more in a cast iron skillet and caramelize them, then I can put them on a burger. I can put them anywhere. But yeah, so I love caramelized onions.
Was there a particular situation or person who influenced you in being a chef?
Yeah, it was. So my mentor has passed away, but his name was Ron Gallucci. And up in Tacoma, he was more of a family friend before I started working for him. So then I started working for him in his kitchen and his creativity. And a number of years later, probably 10 or 12 years after meeting him, I became his executive chef. And we worked together a and creating all these really cool events and parties and private catering and restaurant kind of stuff like that. And he was the one who helped me push me to open my own restaurant. So when I stopped working for the place I've been at the longest, it was Galucci's, and then from there I opened my own restaurants. Yeah, but that was my mentor.
Any advice you would share with someone who's interested in starting a career in the culinary field?
Yeah, I would go get a job at a restaurant. So there's a great books to read and stuff like that along the way, but they don't actually show you the environment you're about to enter, because it's some crazy hours, a lot of time on our feet. It's hot. So the only real way to do it is to get in there and do it. In downtown, there's a number of restaurants. The suburbs, there's plenty of restaurants. There's new restaurants still opening today. I went to a new one this last weekend, new Italian place. So much fun. But yeah, so there's definitely places to learn. And I think the best is just to go in there for about a year or so like that, get your feet wet. And then from there, you can kind of pick the school you want to go to, or if you want to just kind of continue your way up and just work your way up. So my sous chef, who works for me, he's been with me at 3 different restaurants, has never gone to culinary school. And so he just kind of, hunkered down, learned as much as he could, and just kind of worked his way up to the ranks. So.
Mustard greens. What do you do with mustard greens?
So my mustard greens, I usually cook them, especially like in a soup. So if I was going to make like a hearty vegetable soup or like a minestrone soup with a little bit of beans, I would saute those up and stir them in there and just cook them till they're just a little tender. So maybe like the last 10 minutes of the soup till it's going to be done. So add those, saute them, add them to soup, let them get tender, taste it for salt, pepper, adjust it, and then serve it. Yeah.
What cuisine would you say you've mastered?
Oh.
Have you mastered a cuisine yet?
I don't think I've mastered one, but
Which one are you good at?
Yeah, I really love the seafood of the Northwest. So I grew up here. So when the salmons are running, or clams and mussels and oysters, there's such a variety of what seafood is available right here. The Dungeness crabs will come in, the spot prawns we can get. So I definitely have a Northwest cuisine, and I just add my flair to it. So definitely there's the rockfish and the cod and halibut. So there's so much really good things. So the waters here are very bountiful.
Have you ever made split pea soup?
Split pea soup, I have. I think the last time we made it with golden peas.
Oh, nice. Any additional ingredients you like to add?
I always add onions and garlic and celery. So kind of like my little kick of a mirepoix, which is just like the basic soup base, which is usually carrot, celery, and onions. But I use no carrots this time. And then, so we cook that down. The one thing I like to do is kind of pre-soak them a little bit. We do work at a brewery, so some of the secret things that we'll do is soak them in some ale overnight. So that kind of just adds I think of the name, just like a more porridgey kind of flavor to it from the wheat and the grain and the oats that were in those beers, usually like that. So we'll add that, soak them in there, and then we'll bring it to a boil and cook them. It'll cook up in alcohol, but definitely it has like a tiny bit of like a nutty kind of flavor left in that soup. So yeah.
Ham hock or no ham hock?
I do not add ham hock. I try
What are your favorite herb spices, and how do you use them? Do you have a favorite
herb spices? There's many. The main one I always go to is like a medley of herbs, I would say. And I like chimichurri. So chimichurri is like parsley, oregano, thyme, and basil. You chop it up. You can make it in a mortar and pesto or like a Cuisine if you had one. But usually just get all those ingredients in there. A little bit of shallots, garlic, salt, pepper, some acid, either like red wine vinegar or lime juice. And I kind of just mash that all together. And then when it's just about done, just finish it with a little bit of olive oil, light oil. And then from there, you can add that to chicken or salmon or steak, or just have it as like a dip. So if you had like pita or bread or anything like that. With sides with cheese, all these roasted vegetables, so chimichurri roasted vegetables. It is great. So, that's one of my favorite go-to. And it just kind of medleys all those fresh herbs together. And then I'll also freeze it. So if I make a big batch and it's too much for me to consume in the next few days or so, I just put it like in the ice cream, ice dish, put those in there and then throw those in the freezer and pull them out and then put them in Ziploc. And I'll just have them for later. So I want to grab one out later on and throw it on my roasted vegetables.
Nice, like we do with pesto.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And what about spices? Do you have a favorite spice like cumin or smoked paprika or?
I love smoked paprika and turmeric are two of my favorites, especially mixed together. Kind of has a great flavor. Some of the dishes I like to cook, and the restaurant I had was a Spanish restaurant. So we had a lot of smoked paprika and a lot of turmeric, and then we also did saffron.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some Northwest saffron around here, but it's kind of hard to find. But I do like those two.
All right. Well, I think that's our time. Should we go for another few minutes, or should we? Is there any more questions?
There was what seafood soup recipe would you recommend? And then in clam chowder, do you do light cream, half and half, sour cream?
I do. So for chowder, I usually just do half and half if I'm going to make a cream-based chowder. Because half and half is already like half heavy cream and half whole milk. So it's just right down the middle, 50-50. So a big splash of that works out good. You get the nice fat without having it too liquidy. I usually save my sour cream for that like tang if I was going to do like some kind of stroganoff or a dish like that. But for chowder, I really like the creamy half and half. And then for my favorite seafood stew or soup, I usually do cioppino. So cioppino is my favorite. And there's a couple different versions of cioppino or bouillabaisse, something like that. Or
Like a fisherman's stew.
yeah, fisherman's stew. So cioppino. So and right now I have like clams and mussels. There's prawns. I usually do some kind of whitefish, which could be cod or rockfish from around here. And then right now, like we just went up this weekend up Hood Canal, and we were able to buy clams and mussels and some oysters and stuff like that. And that works really good in that stew. So it's definitely a Northwest flair, especially with all these tomatoes that are coming in from the garden right now. You know, I usually will can them or just make a sauce and then throw it in the freezer and then bring those out later and put that in that cioppino.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Simple but delicious.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chef, for being here. It was great to have you back.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll be back in 15 minutes with Chef Sean.
All right. Thank you.
Oh,
That was great.
yeah, easy peasy.